Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael O'Brien. I work at A&R Solar, and you are in the right place if you were looking for the webinar entitled Residential Solar Incentives and Financing. Welcome. It is Wednesday, January 20th, noon time. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to allow about 5 minutes for people to file in and let our two esteemed guests who've joined us today get ready. As we head into that 12:05 mark, I'm going to go ahead and launch a couple of interesting polls to ask some questions of who's in the audience, and we'll even start off with a trivia question. But once again, if you are here for the A&R Solar Residential Solar Incentives and Financing webinar, you're in the right place. Again, it's Wednesday, January 20th at noon. I'm going to launch a series of poll questions you should be able to see on screen here in a moment. The first one is a trivia question. You should see it on screen now. In the United States, it took 40 years from 1976 to 2016 to install 1 million solar systems. How long did it take to install the next 1 million? Give you about 30 seconds to think through that answer, and I will show the results of the poll right afterwards. Thanks. I see the attendees filling out some answers. Thanks for participating. And once I see participation above a certain percentage here, we'll just kick out the answer. All right, 79% of you have voted. And the answer, see if I could bring this up on screen. Forgive me a moment. Is actually 2 years. It took 2 years to install this second million systems. So as you can see, solar adoption and installation is accelerating throughout the United States, and that certainly includes the Northwest. So I'm going to throw out another poll just to see who's here and figure out what you're interested in today. Make sure we can cater today's webinar and future webinars to your needs today. So you should see what's your interest in the webinar today. Go ahead and fill out your responses. Any that apply, go ahead and click. Once again, we're going to be starting the content here at 12:05 with our two guests. It's the A&R Solar Incentives and Financing webinar. Just about ready to show you the answers there. I'm going to hit close here in about 10 seconds. 100% have voted. Just in case it doesn't show on screen, a whole bunch of you are looking at this webinar because you're looking at solar for your home or your business. Some of you just like tech stuff, which is great too. Some of you here just to support solar. And a few for you're young people looking at solar for the next career move. So thank you for joining us as well. And lastly, I'm going to launch one last one here. See if you guys can guess this one. With solar in the Northwest, what compass direction, or what we call azimuth, should solar be pointed to best collect the sun? Let's see if y'all know this answer. All right, we got 47% of you have voted. Once we cross that 80% mark, we will close up the polls and get started with our content today. All right. Well done, everyone. Most of you got the answer correct. The correct answer is south. The primary azimuth you want to point solar towards is south. Secondary is usually west, and tertiary east. So well done there. All right. So I'd like to go ahead and invite Angela and Shannon to bring their cameras forward and unmute while I embarrass them a little bit. I'm going to tell everyone who's here joining us today. Our two esteemed panelists are Shannon Ellis-Brock, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union. Shannon joined PSCCU in 2008, and in 2009, she started an energy efficiency lending program at the credit union. And then through partnerships with local solar installers, she's expanded the credit union's loan program to include solar, battery storage, and helping thousands of Washingtonians and Oregonians become solar citizens. Thank you for joining us, Shannon. And,
thank you.
And we also have Angela Crowley-Koch, who is the Executive Director of the Oregon Solar Energy Industries Association, or OSEA for short. She has spent the last two decades in public policy and advocacy. She previously was the Legislative Director at Oregon Environmental Council, and her work was instrumental in passing the Toxic Free Kids Act and renewing the Clean Fuels Program and getting coal out of Oregon's electricity mix, among other bills. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay. Well, just a little bit of housekeeping for y'all in attendance. You are in mute mode, so we'd love to field your questions. We've already collected all the questions that you sent in when you registered, so we'll cover those as best we can today. And if you do want to ask some questions, please go ahead and use the chat, the questions feature. Chat also works too, but go ahead and use the questions feature, and I'll monitor those and make sure they get to our attendees if we don't think we're going to get to them anyway. Well, with that, I'd like to give the opportunity for Angela first to tell us a little bit about herself and her organization, and a little bit about the solar incentive landscape here in the U.S. and also in the Northwest. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Like Michael said, my name is Angela Crowley-Koch. I'm the Executive Director of OSEA. OSEA has been in Oregon since 1981, in the very early days of solar in the U.S. We have about 100 members in Oregon representing all parts of the solar industry, manufacturers, installers, developers, and also nonprofit stakeholders. And actually, we're very happy to have an A&R Solar team member, Mark Farrell, as the president of our association. So we enjoy working with A&R Solar. Like Michael said, I've been working in public policy for the last few decades. Spent some time working for Senator Merkley in DC, doing some federal policy, and then also have done state policy in Oregon. And so we, as the director of OSEA, I work on regulatory issues, our policy issues, and then assist with all the other things OSEA does, like our annual conference and ongoing webinars that we have. So speaking of, let's see, I think yesterday was supposed to be the official start of the Oregon legislative session. I think it will really get started probably later this week. And some of the incentives that we have in Oregon are state-based and are a result of OSEA's work in 2019. We have a solar plus storage rebate that's available for residential customers and low-income service providers. So that would be like a nonprofit, for example, serving low-income ratepayers. That is the first incentive in Oregon to include storage. We're very happy about that. It was very popular, and it kind of ran out of money last year, and so we're back at the legislature this year asking for more funding for that incentive. And so stay tuned. We will know probably around June if we are successful in getting more funding for our state, or Oregon State rebate. Hopefully we can get some rebates, some incentives in Washington, not quite yet. But luckily, we do have our federal incentives. The Federal Investment Tax Credit, or ITC, was recently extended in the bill that Congress passed before the end of the year. And we're very happy to say that it was extended at 26% for the next 2 years. It was slated to go down, but will remain at 26%. So for the next 2 years, it's really the best time to invest in solar, because after those 2 years, the tax credit goes down to 22%, and then actually will disappear for residential projects entirely. So good time to invest in solar in the next couple of years.
All right, thank you for that. And I'd like to also give a question here to Shannon. Shannon, tell us a little bit about yourself and Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union and the role they play in solar in the Northwest.
Sure. So first of all, you'll have to forgive me. I always feel like when I'm on a webinar, it's like taking a selfie. I never know quite where to look. Like I'm looking at the other people that are talking. Am I looking at the camera? So we'll deal with it. So I'm Shannon Ellis-Brock. As Michael said, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union. Our credit union has actually been around since 1934. We started out as the credit union for the utility, Puget Sound Energy, although in 1934 they were not called Puget Sound Energy. A lot of utilities merged together, a lot of credit unions merged together, and the result was Puget Sound Energy was the utility, and we were called Puget Sound Energy Credit Union, big surprise. I came on board and we ended up changing our name to Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union just to reflect that we serve other people outside of the utility industry. And through a partnership though with PSE, we started doing loans for energy efficiency work. It actually started out as doing loans for gas line extensions is what the utility wanted to know if we could finance, and we said we could. But then the energy advisors at PSE started calling and wanted to know if we could finance things like HVAC units and other energy efficiency upgrades. And we were like, sure, why not? So that's how we started. And then we started talking with a handful of solar companies like A&R Solar, Artisan Electric, Puget Sound Solar, about how can we expand what we're doing and make this include storage or exclude solar. So we thought, why not? So we did it, and it's been exciting and it's been great. And because of the wonderful relationship we have with A&R Solar, they encouraged us to find ways to loan outside of Washington State, which we did. So we now are able to loan to borrowers who want solar in Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, and we actually have a partnership with an installer, a pilot program in Arizona that we work with. So it's been, this has been a really exciting one to see the credit union grow in leaps and bounds, really as a result of our energy efficiency loan programs. And just as, you know, a human being who cares about the environment and future generations, it's really nice to know that in some small way, the programs we have are helping people regardless of their reason for doing it, because not everybody goes solar or does energy efficiency work because they care about the environment. They should, but that's not everybody's motivating factor. But regardless of what somebody's motivation is, the fact that we're able to offer a product that helps them make their dreams a reality, make the environment a better place, and potentially save what we have for future generations is really important. And it's something, given everything that's been happening in the world as of late, we feel really good about and excited to be part of.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon, so much. Welcome. So, Angela, a lot of people on the webinar are new to solar entirely, and a lot of insiders sling a lot of lingo around like net metering. You know, what is net metering simply, and why is it so important in the Northwest?
Yeah, net metering is basically the way that we work with utilities to allow folks to have solar on their home, to use that solar energy and to get it credited basically to their bill. And so you're allowed in Oregon and Washington to have enough solar on your roof as a homeowner to cover your own electricity needs. And so that ideally, you're able to use those kind of credits in the summer when we get a lot of sun here in the Northwest and spread those out through the rest of the year for times like now when we're not getting quite as much sun as we do in June and July. And so, for example, I could have as much solar on my house as both my roof would allow and as the energy I consume. And so I still have to pay the electric company for the services they provide. So connecting me to the grid, you know, all the sort of services an electric company provides. But then the power that I'm generating on my roof that's covering my own usage is essentially deducted from my bill. So that's kind of the basic way of how net metering works. And there's different rules in Oregon and Washington. They can differ by utility. In Oregon, bigger projects can be up to 2 megawatts, which is, for those of you in Oregon, the size of the Oregon Convention Center, basically. And in Washington, I believe it's 1 megawatt. Most houses are only using maybe somewhere between 5 and 15 kilowatts. So everybody should be way under that limit. But it is a good system that allows folks to be compensated for the energy that they are producing.
Thank you. Perfect. And I'll remind the audience to go ahead and use the question area to type in any questions or follow-ups on anything you hear so far. Shannon, what's the difference? Well, first of all, what's the argument for financing solar or other energy efficiency projects?
Argument for financing solar and other energy efficiency projects. Well, one, it's the right thing to do. Two, it's the right thing to do. So in our experience, there's not a lot of lenders that do this type of lending. And, you know, if I'm being honest, I'm kind of glad about that, because that helps our credit union grow and be prosperous and expand what we're doing. But we find the loans that we've done for energy efficiency and renewables have lower charge-off rates than other loans within our portfolio. So this is a smart thing to do. It's you know, for us, it's enabled us, again, to grow our credit union. It's enabled us to add staffing. It's enabled us to help people in the areas that we serve make their homes more efficient. It's, I would like to think, help some of our partners that we work with grow their businesses as well, which is also very rewarding. You know, like as with everything, and especially in the world of banking and financing, it's always a risk-reward calculation. And in the case of lending for solar and other energy efficiency work, the reward is far greater than any risk that we've encountered in doing this. I mean, the risks are when you're the first ones doing something, you wonder, are we doing the right thing? Is this, you know, there was a time when we started doing this that probably for the first 6 months of doing this, I would go back and forth between thinking I was a genius or I was going to get fired. I think we landed on the genius side, but that's, you know, that's just my opinion. I'm very humble. But no, this has been a really, like I said, these are, you know, it's really rewarding to allow people the opportunity to do something that's making their home better, that's making their living environment better, and that's making the planet better. And that's part of being a credit union, is people helping people and forward thinking and trying to be on the cutting edge of doing things. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
I hope that answered the question. You're welcome.
Yeah, it did. I'll have some follow-ups in a moment. Angela, today's inauguration day. Clearly, we're having a change of administration. A lot of questions on the minds are, what's going to come with the new administration? Is there anything on the horizon at the federal level? Does it really affect us at a state level? Any sense of that yet?
Good questions. So we are hopeful that there will be funding coming for clean energy with the new administration and also the new Congress in a couple of ways. So some folks in Congress have been trying to get funding to help state and local governments with their pandemic-caused budget crises. Oregon and Washington both have budget troubles just due to the nature of the pandemic and how we collect taxes as states. And so if there is some federal support coming for states, that can free up some state dollars, which might make it easier to keep funding Oregon's solar plus storage incentive. We're also hoping to see more of a stimulus bill like you saw in the Great Recession, where there were funding for what they called shovel-ready projects. Solar is certainly a shovel-ready project. And so we would love to see some federal funds, again, come to the states to support solar projects. No word exactly yet on day one what those might be. Of course, it's a long process to get something through Congress. We have heard the Biden administration did say it would propose a solar type investment tax credit for standalone batteries. Of course, we like to encourage solar plus storage so that it can be clean storage and not dirty storage coming from coal or other types of fossil power. So we're hopeful, but we'll all have to keep our fingers crossed and wait and see how things play out. Obviously, there's other national priorities at the moment.
All right, thanks for your insights there. Shannon, back to you. Give us a sense as, people are wading into solar or batteries for the first time. What's typical of your loan process, and what does it cost, and what are the terms of your loans typically?
Sure, good question. So the process is pretty simple. So our online application is, a 5-10 minutes to fill out an application online, if that. You submit the application, and we typically have loan decisions within 24 hours. Usually we try for same day, sometimes it's the next business day. If we need additional information and there's back and forth with the borrower, it can sometimes take a little bit longer, usually not. And then we do all of our application signing is all online, so which is nice now, especially given a pandemic. But we also are cognizant of the fact, our physical offices are in the Pacific Northwest. We have an office in Bellevue, one in Renton, one in Tacoma, and an office on Vashon Island. So not necessarily convenient for people in Oregon to come visit us or in other parts of the state. So we allow for everything to be done online. The opening deposit can be done online. So one thing that's unique about credit unions is, and we stick to some old school credit union thought processes, and that's if you want a loan with the credit union, you have to be a member of the credit union. So our membership is open to anybody living, working, attending school, or worshiping in Washington State. And if you're out of state in Oregon, you can become a member of the Northwest Energy Coalition, and that makes you eligible for membership in our credit union. The terms, they're really dependent on the borrower. We offer terms, 15, 20-year maximum terms, and then it's what the borrower is comfortable with the payment. We see a lot of people will do a longer term to keep their payment low and then just pay extra as they have the money, but then they're not obligated to a higher payment. Then we also see people, when they do the longer terms, typically those loans pay off sooner, usually within 6 to 7 years. So that's the process. There's no prepayment penalty for people who do pay their loans off early. People can pay additional money on their loan at any time directly to principal. We do allow for a reamortization of the loan one time at no cost. If somebody gets the federal income tax credit and wants to apply that as a lump sum to their loan, they don't have to, but they can. They can just apply it as a lump sum, and the loan will pay off early. They can reamortize the loan and reduce their payments depending on the term that's left. So it's all in all, it's a fairly easy and painless process. Michael, you probably heard me say this before. My mantra is sort of, if we make things more difficult for the borrower, that makes things more difficult for us, makes things more difficult for our partners, and just try and keep things as easy as possible. It doesn't need to be complicated.
Thank you for simplifying the process for everyone. It's definitely appreciated on the installer side. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Angela, back to you. You talked a little bit about the potential battery incentive coming from the federal level, but what's driving battery storage adoption in the Northwest anyway?
Well, I think the wildfires of Labor Day are not that far behind us, and it really showed us how important resilience is, and the ability for homeowners and communities to have that backup system so that you can keep your lights on even when the power goes out. With increasing wildfires, public utilities are doing public safety power shutoffs, and so that's shutting off the power on purpose when they see a wildfire coming, so that, or when it's a very risky time for wildfires, so that the electrical grid itself is not starting wildfires. And so if we're going to see more power shutoffs in our future, having battery storage is really important for individuals, but also our community. When one person in the neighborhood has the lights on, that's where people can put their medicine in that person's fridge. And so really, I think resiliency is really a big factor in wanting to have storage.
So true. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, given the border between California and Oregon, we're certainly looking over the shoulders of folks. Shannon, I wanted to ask you a little bit, is there a difference between financing solar in Washington and Oregon, and what can I include? Is it just solar?
Good question. And I don't want to like take up all the time because I could probably spend an hour talking about this. So there are differences in Washington and Oregon financing. And that's primarily because in Washington state, we've been very fortunate and have been recipients of grant funds. So the grant funds allows us to do some different things. So it allows us to offer preferred rates, higher dollar amounts, and longer terms than we do without grant funds. So in Oregon, the rate slightly higher than it is in Washington, still a good low rate, fixed rate, but it is slightly higher than it is in Washington because we don't have any grant funding for lending in Oregon. The loan programs that we have in Washington and Oregon, we have several different programs. So it can include solar, it can include energy efficiency work, it can include the things needed to support energy efficiency work in solar. So a lot of times people say, well, I want solar, but I have to upgrade my electrical panel, and I can get a loan for solar, but I can't afford to upgrade my electrical panel. And that's, for us, that's part of the solar. So that can be included in your loan for solar. While we don't advocate ever cutting down trees because trees are awesome, I get that maybe there's just one tree in your yard full of other trees that you're going to keep, but you just need to do something with that one tree so you can get all this amazing solar. That can be included in the loan package. If somebody wants to do the battery backup, we can include that in their loan package. If someone needs to do some roof work, that can be included up to a certain percentage. And if they need to do replace their whole roof, we have different programs that we can put that in. So there's a lot of things that can be included in the loan package, not just specifically the solar panels and the inverters like a lot of people think. So we try and remove the barriers, right? Because we're not helping somebody go solar if they can't afford to change out their electrical panel. We're not helping somebody if they want solar but really want battery backup because, as Angela said, maybe they're older and have medicine they need to keep cold, or they're in an area where they lose power a lot and they need to be able to do these things. We're not helping them do what they want to do if we can't find a way to package everything together. We can even do electric vehicle charging stations. So, if you have an EV and you're going solar and you think, I'd like to charge at home, we can wrap that up in the package too. So yeah, there's lots of things we can include. And when there's always going to be, a case where we can't do everything. But I think we have a really amazing team at the credit union that works really hard to try and find ways to get things done, whether that be a different loan program, maybe a separate loan for the other part that we can't include in the loan for the energy efficiency work, just finding ways to help the borrower get what they need to do to make their solar dreams a reality.
Awesome. And quick follow-up from Levon, who's asking, he or she's asking, how much is the down payment on average? So maybe you could right size, what a typical solar purchase looks like and what the down payment structure is real quick.
Good question. Now I can do my oh, that's so hard. 0, no down payment. So yeah, so we do 100% financing. Do we ever require down payment? Sometimes, maybe if someone's had some past credit challenges and we're not able to approve them for the amount that they initially applied for, we may come back and say, okay, well, we can't approve you for this amount. Here's the amount we can approve you for. In which case, if they wanted to move forward, they may have a down payment. But for the most part, we'll finance 100%. And that's at the request of the borrower. We pay the funds to the installer that they're working with upon their authorization. And the way we have it set up typically works out really well because a lot of times, an installer will want a deposit to, even sometimes a deposit like just to get on the book. And that's usually a small amount. We could fund that. Then, a deposit when the work gets started, and then usually the final payment when everything's finished. So we can accommodate those advances on the loan and don't have a down payment requirement.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Angela, in solar, we know that there's sometimes people just can't go solar on their own home, whether it's financing issues or shade, which is another deal killer oftentimes. Community solar, what is community solar and how might people take advantage of it either in either state?
Yeah, community solar is to, just like Michael said, help out those folks that can't put solar on their own roof, get access to solar power. And so if you're a renter, perhaps you just have too many trees, maybe you don't have enough space on your roof, you can participate in a community solar program. And so if you participate in community solar, you buy a subscription to a larger project. A much larger project that's might not be sited near your house at all. Might be somewhere else, an industrial land on the ground, and have a lot of folks subscribing to that program. So in Oregon, we just started our community solar program last year. We hopefully should have some projects turning on in the next couple months. We are anxiously waiting for that to start. And so there are details on the ASEA webpage, and you can just Google Oregon Community Solar and find out more information about how to subscribe. In Washington, community solar has been happening for some years now, and I might have to lean on Michael here, since I'm in Oregon. I'm not the expert on Washington community solar. There is a bill that has been introduced to expand community solar in Washington. And actually, just this morning, had a call with a couple advocates trying to move that bill through to really make sure that everybody can participate in community solar.
Perfect, you nailed it. Maybe a follow-on. William from Washington is asking, and we can answer this collaboratively if needed. How exactly does the federal tax credit work on my own personal finances? Of course, we can't give official CPA-like advice, but how does it work generally? And are there any other incentives in Washington?
I don't believe there are any other incentives in Washington, unfortunately. And with the ITC, you do have to have a tax liability in order to take advantage of that tax credit. So unfortunately, it's not doesn't work for every income level. And so I believe it's 26% of the system, and it has to be completed with the project has to be turned on and operational within the year that you're applying for that tax credit. And in terms of the actual details, I'm going to ask Michael to help fill in here.
Yeah, great start. So yeah, I understand it to be the exact same thing. The 26% is applied to the entire purchase amount for your solar and or battery system. You do need to have a taxable income or a liability, or appetite as they also call it. And you simply fill out a one-page IRS form. It's IRS 5695. You apply the dollar amount and multiply it times 26%, and that's the eligible amount to your taxes. And as I understand it, if you can't take advantage of that full tax credit in that tax year because you don't have enough taxable income, you can roll it over to future years and take advantage of it. That's how I understand it as well. Of course, we encourage everyone to get their own tax advice. The other little sneaky thing in Washington, I'd say too, it's absent, so it doesn't seem like an incentive, but there is no sales tax in Washington state on residential sized solar purchases, which is a great benefit. That's up to 10.1%, I suppose, if you're in the greater Seattle area. Any add-ons to that, Angela or Shannon, I'm not thinking of?
I think you covered it. I just always like to remind people that it is a tax credit, which is different than a deduction. So, credit's much more valuable than a deduction, usually.
Indeed. So Shannon, what if so let's say I go solar. I've used y'all for a loan. What if I move? What happens then?
Sure. So the loan that we do is not transferable. So if you move and sell your home, the expectation is that the loan gets paid off with the proceeds from the sale of the home. Your home obviously is more valuable, and there's been a lot of studies in the last couple of years that have shown that homes that have solar, homes that have other energy efficiency improvements are more marketable, they sell faster, and they do increase the home's value.
Awesome. Yeah, on that front, Angela, what do we know about home value improvement of solar or battery storage? What goes into that? Is it real? Are there laws around it in either state?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely real. It's especially in these times, like I said, of more public safety power shutoffs, especially having solar and storage is going to be very attractive. In Oregon, your solar and storage, it does not count towards your property taxes. So that's a good exemption we have here in Oregon. I believe in some localities in Washington, there may also be property tax exemption, but I don't know all the details on that. Again, consult with your tax professionals when it comes to tax deductions and exemptions. But it is definitely becoming a more and more attractive feature on homes.
Thank you. Here's a question. As we have people on the webinar who are evaluating solar, they're also going to be evaluating contractors. I'll recuse myself from answering this question myself, but from OSEA's perspective, Angela, and PSCCU's perspective, Shannon, who are you partnering with and why?
Yeah, I'll go first for Oregon. We are lucky to have a system in Oregon, which I should have mentioned earlier when I talked about incentives. So if you are a Portland General Electric or a PacifiCorp customer, you can work with an organization called the Energy Trust of Oregon to get an additional incentive on your solar system, hopefully soon to be including storage on that. And so if you are a customer in Portland General Electric or PacifiCorp territory, the Energy Trust of Oregon will actually help you find a contractor, and they have a rating system where they do sort of quality control on all the solar and storage installers. So that's a great way. We have on our website a directory we have our members. So you can, if you are not in Energy Trust of Oregon territory, you can always take a look and see who's a member of OSEA. And I'll have to defer, let's see, I don't exactly know how the process works in Washington, how to find the best contractor.
I can help with that a little bit. So there are some trade associations in Washington as well. One is WASEA, I'm like OSEA, WASEA, which we used to be called Solar Installers of Washington. I say we because I'm on the board. And then there's Solar Washington, which is another good trade association member base. So those are good resources for people to look at to find installers. You can contact your local utility. Most utilities also have lists of installers that they work with. We do at the credit union, I'll say, almost a reverse vetting process in that, again, in an effort to try and keep things simpler. I don't want to vet every single contractor that ever refers a customer to us. We feel that onus is on the homeowner to decide who they want to work with, to get bids, to check LNI's website, to do their own due diligence. That said, when it comes to solar, we do have a specific solar loan program that includes a handful of installers that were part of a old loan program that got kind of transferred with some grant funding. But those installers typically have higher standards. The initial part of that program was installers that paid living wages to their crew. That was an important factor of it. And, one of the things as we go through this process and we say, consult your CPA or you'd have to ask this person, is not because we don't, have opinions, but I think we all know what they say about opinions, right? So if your installer is telling you, oh yeah, you get this and you get this and I know, this is what you're going to get, be wary of that. be wary if somebody tells you, well, we'll give you $2,000 back on your system. It's probably because they jacked up the price $3,000, so they're being generous, giving you $2,000 back. So I think it's really important to, a news anchor I used to say something like, if it doesn't pass, it has to pass the smell test, right? I mean, like, we all know the saying, if it looks too good to be true or sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Nothing's free. So, places that have 0% financing, that's great, but that comes at a cost, typically a higher price on the system. Those are just things that we've seen. So we always, get multiple bids. The lowest bid is not always the best bid. Make sure that they're not giving you tax advice unless they have the initial CPA after their name. And if those little red flags come up, then, maybe do some deeper digging is what I would say. There's no free ride. I think that's the biggest thing we see. We see people getting really excited because they're like, oh, hey, look, I got this bid, and they're knocking $5,000 off the price of the system. Like, okay. They probably are not. It's probably because the system was priced higher in the first place, and that allowed them to give you a discount to seem like it was an amazing deal. So, buyer beware. It's like that with everything. Do your research.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Shannon said about get multiple bids, as with any time you're hiring a contractor.
Well said both. Thank you very much. This is a great question for the future, I think, of solar that we're all going to need to get a little bit more comfortable with. But we have friends in California and other states that are starting to have a lot more solar being installed in their neighborhoods. And the value of net metering comes into question, into play, Angela, certainly. What is time of use, and what does that mean, and how might it play a role in the future of electricity in the Northwest?
Yeah, so time of use is a proposal that it can incentivize solar. It can also hurt solar depending on where you are and how much solar you're getting. California obviously is a lot more sunny than Oregon and Washington, and so the idea is that you if you're using and or producing solar at a peak time, you get paid more for that generation when there is the peak usage of energy. And as an energy user, electricity costs more when it's at a peak time. And so sometimes this can benefit solar, like in the weekend in the middle of the day, but when we're during the week and the peak of our energy peak is at night in the fall when the solar is not producing as much, it doesn't help solar as much. And so we are keeping a close eye on things like time of use to make sure that solar is treated fairly, especially when paired with solar, which obviously allows you to use your solar power, when paired with storage, which allows you to use your solar power at other times other than when it's sunny out.
Perfect. Yep. That's how I understand it as well. And I think it'll play an interesting role as time wears on. Shannon, maybe a little bit of an inside baseball question here, and you've touched on it a little bit, but if I'm preparing to apply for a loan at PSCCU, what are the things I have to worry about in terms of qualifying? What are the little elements that you all are going to be looking at?
Worry about? So let's see. So with the online application, it's, be prepared to fill that out because you can't stop it and come back to it unless you already have an account with us, which most people don't. So have, your income, know approximately when you started your job. If you're applying jointly, have the joint borrower's information as well, or have them there with you if you would need their social security and income information. We, as a credit union, one, and two, because we believe in what we're doing and we have grant funding, we really look at the whole picture. So we don't have, people know about credit scores and places will say, well, you have to have a credit score of this or better or we won't do the loan. We look at everything. Credit's just a part of it. We look at credit, we look at the income, we look at the debts in relationship to the income. We look at time someone's been on their job or in their field, not necessarily, You know, you don't have to be at one job 15 years, but maybe you just started a new job last week, but you've been in that same field for a few years. We do assess the interest rate based on the risk. So, and that is based on a credit score. So obviously if you have better credit, you're going to get a lower interest rate, but that doesn't preclude people that have had past credit challenges from getting a loan with us. So it's really a gray area, and I get that question a lot. There's nothing, unless your house is in foreclosure, that's pretty much the only hard and fast way we're going to say, no, we can't help you with a loan. Like, you need to, worry about your house being in foreclosure. Because we look at everything. And again, if we can't do a loan for the full amount, is there a dollar amount we can do? And if we can't do a loan at all, then let's talk to the borrower about why we can't do the loan and what the borrower can do to change the situation so that maybe in 6 months they can come back and apply for a loan and be approved. So I don't have a cut and dry answer, but I think in this case that's good. That just means that, again, we look at everybody and try and help as many people as we can, knowing that we're not going to be able to help everybody, but we try.
Thank you very much. And I've seen you try. That's awesome. Thank you. We have a question here. We touched on a little bit, but maybe we could dive in a little bit deeper. How much is home real estate value increased with solar and battery installation? I know I can think of a couple of studies that have happened in the past, and I know Zillow has piped in. Do y'all have any insight on that? I can help out with that answer at the end as well.
Yeah, I defer to you. I don't have any data on that.
Yeah, it's challenging, and it's one of those things. I feel there's a lot of contradiction. Like, one place will say, "Oh, it increases your home value by this," and I don't have a good answer either.
Yeah, no sweat. I think the sources that we've drawn upon at A&R Solar, and it's always, of course, better when someone outside of the industry can verify that for us. So it's just not the industry saying that. Are twofold. One, we did see in April of 2020, Zillow and the Economist group over there did announce that they had been looking at solar for some time and had seen the nationwide average of homes show about a 4.1% increase in sale price now that they have over 2 million installations across the United States. Because as we all know, comparables are a huge part of the real estate game, where we need to see one unlike the other and have enough volume of those in certain neighborhoods to do that. So that was a very interesting validation point. Clearly it's a bell curve. If your home is worth $2 million or something and you installed solar, clearly it's not going to jump hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't think it stretches in either direction. But generally speaking, they averaged it out to be about 4.1%, which is very encouraging. And as we've been working with Zillow to get more information, I think we could safely say that Northwest would certainly support that in a lot of cases. Additionally, the other thing I would share with listeners are that the American Appraisal Institute has become keen to understand the impacts of solar and batteries on value of homes in the Northwest and throughout the country, and have created certification standards for appraisers to use legal addenda to the appraisings of homes and go through a methodology to actually ascribe a value to that system. Because we all know in the industry that you're not moving money from a bank account into thin air and hoping just the cost savings are coming back. You're actually adding an asset to your home that's generating money, as well as creating some real resale value in the eyes of buyers. So there have been some efforts to codify that on the appraisal side. So that's also an encouraging development in the industry. Go.
And another thing too, I was going to say, as a seller, if you're selling your home, that's incumbent on you as well to say, like, hey, I want this in my real estate listing that I have solar. I want you to say, here's a PDF of my utility bill, and I want you to put that on my real estate listing, and here's what it was before I had solar. And I think that, like when you talked about the real estate people and appraisers, that's the push that we all need to make. Like, we have walking scores when you look at house sales, and that's great. Like, I want to know how walkable my neighborhood is, but we really need to push to start having energy scoring on there, right? because especially for first-time home buyers, that's a big shock to go perhaps from a small apartment to buying your first home. And then instead of a $50 a month utility bill, you get your first utility bill that's like $300 or $400 after you just spent all your money buying a house. So I think we need to, as individuals, push on our elected officials to start having utility scoring, energy scoring being a part of the process. And if we're selling our homes, to make sure that goes on a listing, that sellers know or potential buyers know that this house has solar power. This is my average utility bill with solar. This is what it was without solar, to help, buyers make a better decision.
And if you are in the Portland metro area in Multnomah County, we do actually have energy scores for our homes.
Awesome.
Yeah, only in one county. We're trying at the state level still.
That's great. That's good progress. We'll take it. Well, good. We're nearing the end of the hour, so I wanted to offer our panelists maybe a crack at one more question here, but invite the audience to submit their questions via chat if there's any remaining ones or follow-ups you'd like to hear. But maybe some folks had said that there are young people interested in getting into the industry. Any tips as you all hire folks, or you see your colleagues hiring people in solar? Angela and Shannon, anything you look out for people to have to be good at or be experienced with before they head in?
Yeah, there's a lot of different job possibilities in the solar industry. So it's not just getting on the roof, although getting on the roof is pretty fun. And so there are installation jobs, but there are also policy jobs like I do. Obviously, Shannon basically works in solar, helping customers to finance their solar. There are distributors, warehouse positions, sales positions, project managers. Financing is obviously a huge part of solar. And so project design, building codes and permitting, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get involved in the solar industry. And if you want more information on the different job opportunities in solar, our OSEA website, oseia.org, has a careers webpage that you can check out and learn a little bit more about the possibilities in solar.
Beautiful.
And I would just add to that, there's a lot of great groups in Washington and Oregon. So OSEA being one of them that Angela is the executive director of, WASEA in Washington State and Solar Washington. Reach out to those groups and maybe volunteer to help. Volunteer to be on their board, volunteer to serve on a committee and learn more about the industry and people that are doing solar, and learn maybe what part of the job you want to work in. And thank you, because again, we're like that commercial, I'm your banker. We're bankers, but we are in the solar industry, right? We're doing amazing things and helping people, move forward with their goals and what they want to do to make their homes more livable, to conserve energy. And it's not on a roof, so maybe not as fun. Like we have to look out a window to see the sun instead of being outside and enjoying it, unless you take your lunch break and then you can go walk around the block. But there's lots of different avenues that you can be part of solar. But I would really encourage young people to reach out to trade associations in their area and see how they can help and support and volunteer and learn more about the industry and what they might want to do.
Beautiful. Thank you for laying the foundation for folks. That's awesome. Well, we got one more question that slipped in here. What's the approximate cost of a solar battery? And another one came in. If you want to maybe take a crack at that, Shannon, just based on the typical loan size you might see. If you can't, I can also add my perspective as well, and certainly Angela as well.
Honestly, I don't think the banker is the best person to answer how much does a solar battery cost. Perhaps the person from the solar company that does battery installs will be better equipped to answer that.
Okay, fine. I'm trying to yield the floor to y'all, and Angela, jump in here at any time. Our perspective is that the industry is still kind of in its infancy, although now we can look at storage and batteries squarely in the eye and say, yeah, you're ready for the prime time. We've seen these working in the field now for multiple years. Providers like Tesla and SolarEdge Enphase, other multinational publicly traded companies are pouring billions of dollars in investment in there. There's a lot at stake from a climate perspective and also a profit perspective. So the engineering behind these things have been phenomenal. The huge windstorm we had blowing through the Northwest here last week put a lot of people in a bad spot from a power perspective, over 600,000 as I understand it, largely in Washington, but definitely some in Oregon as well. And from the perspective of those people who wrote into us who had batteries, they said it was a lifesaver. And some didn't even know there was a power outage because they kind of transferred over so fast. But from a cost perspective, it's kind of where solar was, 8 years ago. We've seen costs fall, generally speaking, in the solar side. We expect batteries to fall precipitously as the years pass and technology and scale gets better as well. But we're still seeing a bit of an early adopter price tag to that. So we typically say for Western Washington, Western Oregon implementations, they run Tesla Powerwall and SolarEdge implementations tend to run anywhere from $15,000, $16,000 to $20,000 depending on complexity. But that's fortunately before the federal tax credit. So the 26% of that's coming back to you in your taxes, provided it's paired with solar, and we advocated that it does. Also, that's for one Powerwall, which is 13.5 kilowatt hours. You can look into that. That's roughly speaking somewhere between 3/4 and a day worth of power outages for the average Northwest home. You can expand those systems. They're built to scale. So hopefully that gives listeners a bit of a sense of what pricing looks like. And I thought y'all were going to let me off the hook on these questions, but I'll take it.
In Oregon, our storage rebate is $2,500 for your storage system. That's a nice little help there.
That's super meaningful. Awesome. Couple other ones here. Are there any consumer reports type resources out there to be able to rate or compare different panels or equipment? This person, Will, has received several estimates for solar systems, don't know how to evaluate quality, lifespan, efficacy of these systems. I can take a shot at that unless anyone wants to jump in. Great. Okay. You're right. You're going to get a host of different stories from different installers based on what they're selling. I probably will end up sending you a whole list of different resources. One that comes off the top of my head is Energy Sage. Energy Sage is also a place to go buy solar. You can put in your information. You can compare a select group of contractors on there, but I don't advocate for that buying process because it tends to be a bit of a race to the bottom. When whoever ends up being the lowest price tends to win there, and as Shannon has aptly pointed out, the lowest price isn't always necessarily your most quality bid. But what they have done very well over the years is amass a good deal of independently derived information about all the various panel types, all the various inverter types, and now a good host of data about battery storage. So from a rating perspective, I think it's a very reputable place to check out different types of solar panels and inverters. So it's a really good question. Anything y'all want to add to that? Energy Trust comes to mind.
Yeah, I think Energy Sage is a good place to look. I don't know how much Energy Trust gets into the specific products, but they do rate the installers who then know about all these different products.
Perfect. All right. Well, I would like to thank both of our wonderful panelists for taking a very long or just a hugely important part of your this day out of commission for us here at A&R and our panelists. Thank you. It's definitely a day of history, and to have you all join us here has been a great pleasure. Once again, it's Angela Crowley-Koch, the Executive Director of OSEA in Oregon, and Shannon Ellis-Brock, the COO of Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union. Thank you so much. Get your last words in there. What do you say about 2021?
When I leave here, I'm taking a break and I'm going to go pick up my inauguration day cupcakes. I'm so excited. One has little Joe Biden sunglasses on it, and the other one has like big lips, and it says, "Excuse me, I'm speaking." Yeah, and I think that one has sprinkles in the middle or something when you bite into. I don't know. I'm probably not going to eat them. I just wanted to get them because I thought they were super cute. I'm going to deliver them to some friends from 6 feet apart.
Well done.
That's my wrap up. Anyways, yeah, if you want to go solar, it's a great time to do it. Like, you know, everything's stepping down, so do it as soon as you can. If you need a loan, we're here to help. Your bank is here to help. There's lots of places you can go to get information. And thank you for letting me be a part of this today. It's been a lot of fun. Not as fun as my inauguration day cupcakes, but.
Thanks, Michael, for putting this together, and good luck, everyone, with your solar projects. It feels good to generate your own energy, so have fun with it.
Thanks, everyone. Signing off. Have a great afternoon.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.